Okay, following the typical template, and Nelia's here, our QA rep, thanks. So any concerns on the PG11 rollout to production? That would be Jose. I haven't seen anything on the issues. He's not online yet. So, although he did ask about the estimate the time to execute the merge diff migration. I did not read this comment in advance.
Hello, Craig.
Hey, did you have a specific question on this one?
Yes, let me explain or give a bit more of context here. We're a bit concerned with the time of the maintenance for the upgrade because we should do it in 2 hours. And if the database will be smaller or not so large, let's say, having this migration, all the tasks will be faster. What I'm saying with that, the async process, checking indexes or so on, like statistics and so on. For this, we were checking this. And of course, as I mentioned as well in the last infrastructure call, we can execute this migration with the table there. Just we are trying to dimension better the time. This is the concern that we have with this merge diff table, okay? I'm just asking, are you here to have, give visibility to the team and to everyone who would like to add any notes there?
Related question, did I hear a rumor that 13.0 might be pushed back a little bit? Maybe Josh can best answer that question. Did I hear it was going to be, well, I heard or read somewhere that might be pushed back a month.
Yep. So I would say I opened that issue to collect like data on whether we should or not, given the impact of the global situation. But there's been no decision, and I think so far things look like they're on track. So as far as I know, the answer is no.
Okay.
We might need to close that issue because it's clearly causing confusion.
All right, so we'll go with the no.
Or if people are concerned and want it to push back, they should post on it and make it clear. One of those two things. So
that may have resolved this issue about the timing of doing the merge diff migration. If we had another month, maybe it could get done. But does everybody understand the context of what Jose is bringing up here? Stunned silence. So the quick summary is this is a massive table. It's what, about 30% of the database at the moment. And if we can push that migration off to external storage, then it won't have to be part of the Postgres 11 upgrade. But there are concerns that that actual migration can be done in time to get the upgrade on time as well. So you got kind of a circular reference of dependencies there. So I know one of the questions in the thread was, is this a requirement to get this done? But then the qualifying question was, well, can we get the upgrade done in the 2-hour window? And I'm not sure we have an answer to either.
I'm working on this to give a more detailed explanation on the timing. Just to give an overview, the last time when we did the migration for the Patroni migration, just the maintenance was like 1.5 hours. And the Patron itself setup was really fast because it was just repointing to another host. But take down the platform, stopping the whole traffic and restoring the traffic takes a lot of time. This is my main concern.
Perhaps it's worth to note that the migration doesn't have to be fully completed, right? So we can stop this migration at any time, and the sooner we start doing it, the more of an impact it's going to have on sites, right? Have you considered running it until we do the upgrade and then live with what we have at that time?
Could be possible. If the migration could be partial, yes, why not? Let's say if we can remove, let's say 1 terabyte in the upgrade and have the upgrade and finish this in the new version, I don't see any objection in that, but good point.
Okay.
And what keeps us from starting that migration now at the moment?
There is another issue that is a development one I will link here. That is the rollback process that SRE mentioned that they were not comfortable because they do not have a rollback process in case of something goes wrong, like needs to reinsert the things on the database, for what I understand. I will add here the issue. Give me some minutes. This is on development at the moment with Nick Thomas.
Okay, so it sounds like this migration shouldn't be a blocker to upgrade then, and we can have a partial migration, potentially pause it, do the upgrade, and then resume the migration. Is that what I heard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Amelia, for taking notes. All right. Do we need to spend any more time on this, or are we okay right now? I think we're all right. All right. I'm going to jump around a little bit. So a couple things that have been done. I think we're going to spend the majority of our time on the incidents list and talk about that. So I want to talk about what's been done and what's happening next, so we can spend the remainder of the time on the incidents list and get kind of a shared understanding. So what's been done, tenancy model, we identified top level namespace as a target for a tenancy model to build partitioning and sharding on top of that. Andreas is finished with using structure.sql instead of schema.rb. That was a blocker for us to be able to use some of the features that we want to use for partitioning, and will allow us to start using the advanced features in PG11 once the upgrade is done. There's some follow-up items. So under what's happening next, there's a follow-up item on the same issue. We're moving forward on partitioning implementation, so doing some investigation in the planning time increase, setting up a Citus cluster, and I think I saw Anthony on here. We pinged you on an issue that we're blocked on. He's not here anymore. So I'll follow up with them to make sure that we get some movement on that. Setting up a Citus cluster, and then Mac, you added something for what's up next?
Yes. So wanted to close the loop on testing and staging, and it seems like from my feedback last time, thanks Jose, we have split up the old issue 8 into 2 issues now, and issue 9 is only for staging, correct? Because we're tracking staging differently. So this is staging, and then I want to close the loop on. Thank you for fixing the typo, Greg. Issue 9592, and we need to run the tests. Which part of this step fits in issue 9? Let's make it clear. And I'm typing my response to issue 9 right now. I think we need to make sure that the full regression ones in staging are passing minus any known issues. And I'm proposing that we do have engineers on call during the time. What Neil should be doing is just run point of contact and act as an overseer on what tests is a known failure, check it off, and what tests are passing. If there are new tests that are failing, we need to debug and see whether it's related to PG11 and make sure that it's not. When that is done, then we are confident that the migration on staging is successful. That's what I'm proposing here.
Awesome. So, Mac, whom I should contact? Because we are planning to execute Thursday, 3 p.m. UTC, the first attempt of the migration. Who will be involved from your team?
My engineers and managers on the call, this working group now. So both Tanya and Nelly are here. Let's work async and just clearly put it in the issue. What is the time that we need to run the tests, and then we'll run async on our part to coordinate. I think we will need to also coordinate with the delivery team to make sure that that they are aware that this change is landing and staging, which I assume is already.
Yeah, it will be announced.
Okay. So Thursday, 3 p.m. PST. What time?
UTC, I said.
And UTC is a start, or is that when the blackout?
Yeah, starting, yes. Starting at 3 p.m. UTC, yes.
Okay. When does the
initial suggestion, yeah.
Which issue should we follow for async coordination?
I think it's. Go ahead, Jose.
I created one now that I'm linking everyone. I will send you now. That's like in the execute possibilities update, this one here.
Sorry, which one are you pointing to, Jose?
Yes, the 9592. I will send here in the chat. Here, I put it outside of the time.
All right. Anything else on testing or anything else that's been we can talk about for what's happening next?
Yes, just one point with the test, Mac. Our intention here is to migrate, upgrade to the new version of Postgres, and after restore, because we want to execute more times the script and see which point we want to improve and so on. So for this, we could do the upgrade, execute the tests required, and later on have the rollback step. Sounds good for you?
Yeah, so it's practice, correct? So you go to 11, test, and then you go back to 10, and then just try that dance until we are real comfortable.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Awesome.
Okay.
Before we move to the list, so Jose, just to double check that we are on track for PG11 upgrade. Any blockers, soft or hard, you want to mention?
Not at the moment. We are fine.
Okay, cool. That's the very first question in this doc. So, okay, we are good. Oh,
Yeah, thanks, John. All right, so jump over to the incidents list. So this is something that was brought up early on in this working group. So Jose compiled a list of database incidents that happened within the last year. We added severity and title here. We're asking how sharding could have helped. And then just this last week, we asked Alvaro and Jose to look at it through the lens of Citus, and just wanted to run through those real quick. And sorry, this sheet is super wide, so it's hard to see everything we want to talk about here. So well, it looks like it's been updated a little bit. So I guess, can we get some more clarification on this answer? So Citus DB with more than a coordinator and shards would have mitigated the issue? Because it looks like the answer you gave for pretty much all of the incidents. Be Alvaro. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So basically, the answer of how Citus would help is quite similar actually to the answer of how sharding would help, because Citus is just an implementation of sharding anyway, right? So we should, in my opinion, we should look a little bit separately of whether sharding would help here, which the answer is in majority yes, and Citus is a valid sharding solution, which is a subject of the other issues that have been GitHub issue that have been explored so far, and where I dropped some comments. But basically, to put this into context and answering that question, so in Citus, if we have only one coordinator, just take into account that every query is going to be funneled through that same coordinator, just only one. It could have two potential problems. One could be a bottleneck. It could be a point of saturation, and it could also adds actually some latency. So leaving latency aside for a moment, which I think is an issue to be analyzed anyway, it could be a bottleneck. How to solve this? Just to scale out the coordinator too. This is possible on Citus. It is something actually, it's a bit do-it-yourself, but you basically set up a load balancer on top, and then it could be a Google ILB, and then below several coordinators. And then they can either use streaming replication or another form of replication. This is suggested by the Citus documentation. This is up to you. Typically, we deploy a streaming replication, and then it will not be a bottleneck. So with this mentioned, which is what Jose added there, if there's more than coordinator and shards, meaning more than one, effectively you're using sharding, then Citus would be a solution here.
Okay, I see what you're saying then. And in the notes and the issues that were called out, this is a roll your own, right? There's no out of the box way to have more than one coordinator. This is a solution that we would have to come up with.
Yeah, correct. So the docs actually suggest two options. One is to use a streaming replication, which is the most natural one. Another one is that from time to time, you copy manually the data from one coordinator to the other ones. Just bear in mind that the coordinator is for low bandwidth and small database. It's just metadata about the partitions and the shards themselves. So you actually know when you're changing the data is separate from the data plane. Anyway, streaming replication is a much better solution for this anyway, but it's still do it yourself. It's not provided out of the box by Citus itself. And if it would be Citus with a single coordinator, we don't know for sure whether most of these problems have been prevented or not, because we haven't measured the performance of this coordinator, how much workload it can handle. But it might be limiting at some point.
Okay.
Interesting. I wasn't aware that the Citus still had the issue of having a single point of failure node.
Actually, I dive deeper into there's issue, yeah, the 207833. It handles with the Citus test, and I raised some comments there and some questions. One of them is it's actually there's a lot of do-it-yourself points, like high availability also is do-it-yourself. There's actually two solutions for Citus HA. One is provided by Citus itself. It's called internal replication, but it's only recommended for a append mostly or append only pattern, which is by far not GitLab's case. The other alternative is do it yourself with string replication, which is the way we should have to go, and is really do it yourself. Is just make sure that the node works, that the shard works, and then Citus will be happy. The coordinator needs to find a stable IP or DNS name, and that's something we can provide with Petronis, similarly to what we do right now in GitLab itself, the main database. But it's something that is on us.
Okay. Does anybody have any other comments on that section about the coordinator bottleneck and what the work would need to be done there? Clearly, we have some more research to do.
In general, what I would say is that this is a nice summary. I would encourage those of you who want to go to this issue, the 207833, and just check the. I left two comments there. One more specific about the topics being discussed so far part of this issue. This is the first one. Yeah. The second one is about more generic or fundamental questions, and we can definitely follow up there, or I can answer any questions right now with what I stated there. But there's some concerns that I believe need to be addressed before like making a final decision on this.
For sure. Yeah. And that's, thank you for raising those questions. Those are things that we can incorporate into our implementation of Citus as we're starting to build up to that. So appreciate it. Unless anybody has any other questions on that implementation level, I actually had a question about pricing. All right. Take the stunned silence as no more questions on that. Alvaro, you might be the only one who has dealt with enterprise pricing. Well, you probably are on this call. Do you have any idea what typical enterprise pricing is? I saw the Azure pricing. We could probably extrapolate, I guess, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't know about Citus enterprise pricing per se. I know that typically enterprise pricing for database-based solutions is around 1K to several K per core. But other than that, I don't know the specifics about Citus. But if this is important, I can definitely get in touch with them. I know all the founder team of Citus, so I can ask them. Or if they would have any other question, I can do that.
When you say 1K per core, is that annually or is that a perpetual license?
Subscription, yeah, annual license, and this is starting. I know, for example, Enterprise DB is 1.75K per core per year subscription. So one
per year sounds a lot less scary.
For sure.
Because we have 1,000 cores.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah. Well, I have an open issue for our overscaling of the Petroni cluster, because we're allocated at something like 1,100 cores, but we're utilizing less than 20% of that.
We have some working at the moment to reduce the number of nodes.
Awesome.
Can you add those issues somewhere in here, Jose, when you get on it?
Yes, I will add them here.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Alvaro. I don't think we're at the point where we need to be super concerned with pricing yet, but that's good anecdotal information to know. So, and thanks for offering to reach out. I don't think we need to do it yet. Okay, we've gone through everything on the agenda. Are there any other topics folks want to talk about?
Well, this question that is there that I raised myself. So I don't know if this is under the questions section at the bottom of this page. So I don't know if this has been done before or as part of this working group, because I just joined it a little bit after. It's a bit going up. Yeah, there.
Yep.
So if there's no information about this, I would suggest to compile this information. I think it's actually key in order to understand what is the context about this sharding process, and you know, how sharding can go, and what is the numbers we're talking about. For example, one of the concerns that I raised on the Citus issue is that their documentation says that Citus is designed for 100K plus tenants. I don't know exactly the number of tenants that there are right now on GitLab if we consider the tenant as the namespace, which sounds like a reasonable first approach. I don't know if we're talking about less than that or orders of magnitude more than that.
Million.
Sorry?
If you count namespace, it's millions, tens of millions.
Yeah. Okay. So this thank you for this. So this brings me to this point, right? So their docs says this is good for 100K plus. I don't know how big or small that plus is, but it's definitely worth considering this. So what I'm proposing here is to gather data about what is the size in both rows and bytes of every table. First approach is to understand what we're looking at. Then go table by table and check whether that table will need to be sharded or will need to be a replicated table. By replicated means that there's no tenant, it's not related to any tenant, but potentially to all of them. And then also, apart from this, compile the distribution of tenants. And by distribution, I mean how many big tenants we have, how many small tenants we have. We can either bin them and say, okay, tenants between this amount and this amount, let's say 10 and 100, 100 and 1,000, 1,000 and 10K, and so forth, and bin them to understand what is the distribution. So with these numbers, we can actually understand more the landscape. We can understand how many shards we might need to want to create. Bear in mind that the number of shards is not the number of nodes. Typically, all sharding environments distinguish between logical shards and physical shards, or nodes where you run those shards and you're able to shift them and move them around. And I think this will be great context for this information, to compile all this list of information, but it's just a suggestion.
No, it's good information to gather. So I will create an issue to answer those questions. And we can follow up with it async. Sorry, somebody going to say something.
Alvaro, do you perhaps happen to know how Citus2B deals with rather large replicated tables, like tables that don't follow the sharding scheme, but still get a lot of traffic also in terms of writes?
Yes, unless I'm mistaken, it uses logical replication. So actually it requires Postgres 10 for this, which is a non-issue for us in our case. And then for those tables that are replicated, they are turned into a publisher, speaking in Postgres 10 lingo, and then they are replicated via subscribers. So it's using logical replication, which in turn is subject to the limitations of Postgres 10 logical replication, which are not very significant or different from the ones that already have any sharding solution, but basically requires primary key per table and some other minor considerations about data types and sequences. But they're also applied to general sharding, so it's nothing really special for that. Now, a large volume data table, the table that is replicated, may have some lagging, and that may create some consistency issues, but that's a different story.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll get an issue out for that after this meeting, and we can gather the information before next week. But yeah, thanks. All right, got 5 minutes left. Anything else? We'll take that as a no. All right, thanks everybody.
Okay, thank you.